Oh, good morning, YouTubers. Would you just look at this big, beautiful sky that the good Lord has given us to work in today? Mercy sakes, great balls of fire. So I'm going to tell y'all a little bit of a story. And this goes back a little ways. I'm going to start with talking about my dad. My dad used to say that you can't outgive God. And my dad was a man that worked in a factory all his life until they basically retired him and they moved all the factory people. Well, they got rid of them and they moved all the jobs over to some third world country. Could have been China, Taiwan, somewhere. And after they did that, they realized that people like my dad knew stuff that people in China and Taiwan and places like that didn't know. And so they asked him if he'd come back to work, and he said, no, but if you want me to work, I'll do what I used to do for you right here in my basement, and you can pay me $100 for every one I turn out. He was a pattern cutter for sofas and hide-a-beds and couches. So they said, okay, they're happy to get him. So they wound up paying him more per unit that he could turn out than he was making working in the factory. He's probably making about $100 a week working in the factory. He could turn out 2 or 3 patterns a day and make 3 or 4 times that much a day. So this starts, what I'm going to tell you, starts earlier than that. We lived in a little house out in the country. We moved away from a city when I was pretty young, about 3rd grade. And Dad bought some land out there and bought a piece of property that a fellow who'd come home from World War II had developed. He'd built a lake on it, had a little log cabin on it, and he'd built a house around the log cabin. So anyway, I remember while we was there, we was church-going people, and one time Dad went on a missionary trip. He went down to Colombia, I think it was Colombia, South America, and he met a missionary down there named Otis Seals. And he came home convicted, and he told us, he said, you know, God told me to start giving that man $100 a month. Now you think about it, this is the man that was only making $100 a week. There's a yellow jacket bothering me. You get away. Just leave me alone. I don't want to have nothing to do with you. Shoot. So anyway, he came home and he said, we're going to have to make some sacrifices because I've been convicted by God to do this, and we're going to start giving $100 a month to this missionary. So we said okay, because whatever Mom and Dad said, you know, we believed they was okay. Well, an odd thing happened. Before that time, we had always worked really hard to make ends meet. I remember Dad having an old 63 Pontiac with a cracked carburetor on it, and he couldn't get it to run right, and he was buying all kind of aluminum glue, goop and gunk to try to glue that carburetor back together. Somehow, after he started giving that money, it seemed like we started doing better. Things started looking up for us. We wound up, you know, we divided up, Dad divided up that land. He sold it off in pieces. They set up where people was making him payments on it. He was earning, his interest rate was 10% back there, and he was earning that 10% interest rate on the money that he financed. And we built a new house, and then another and another. And I mean, we didn't build new houses, but Mom and Dad moved up in the world, nice places to live, and they still had some of that land, and they sold different pieces of it. Things went well. So Dad said to me at a certain point, you can't outgive God. And I wasn't sure. It took me about half my life before I started trying, but at a certain point I decided to put it to the test. So I started giving. I never was big on giving when I was young because it seemed like I never had 2 nickels to rub together, but I started giving, and I started noticing that every time I'd give, I'd be okay. I wouldn't run out of money. And down through the years, I put that to the test. I started giving more money to the church and giving more money to organizations that helps feed hungry kids in a bunch of different countries. You know, it's this thing and that. And a while ago, I got to thinking, boy, things are getting really tight around here. Maybe I should cut back on my giving. I thought, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to trust God, because I'm going to believe what I've always believed, and I'm going to trust God. Well, so anyway, you may remember when I built this little deck thing that we're sitting on here, this little set of running boards, I didn't have enough money to go out and buy no new lumber. So I used some old lumber that I got out of a chicken house, and it's already got some deterioration happening on it. I can tell it's heading toward the place where it's going to rot if it's out in the weather, but I put it up here anyway because it's all I had and I didn't feel like I could afford anymore. So I went through the month. I got to the end of the month thinking I was going to be broke, and I had more money than I expected. I had a lot more money than I expected. I'm not sure what happened, but I got some fresher treated lumber on the back of the truck there that I went out and bought because I felt like I could afford it, even though I'm still giving as much as I've been given. That's just one more time when God has showed me that Dad was right about giving. He's right about a lot of things, but he was right about giving. You can't outgive God. So I just want to share that with y'all. I'm going to pull off this old lumber, and I'll probably take it back down there in the banjo shed and use it for something, maybe some shelves or something down there, because if that wood stays inside, it'll last a goodly long while if it stays dry and out of the weather. And then I'll put this new lumber on here, and we'll have something even nicer than I thought I was going to be able to afford in the first place. So I just want to share that with y'all because I do like to share when God gives me something, when he gives me a little bit of an understanding about something. I like to share that with y'all because I don't think there's anything more important that I could do in my life than glorify God.